This meeting is being recorded.
Hi, everyone. This is Miranda with Valuable Voices podcast. I'm really excited for you guys to meet Kris today. Look how colorful and fun and full of joy she is just by her background. I met her through Tammy. So Kris, thank you for being on today.
Thanks, Miranda. I'm so excited to meet you and chat for a minute.
Yeah. Again, you just bring joy and sparkle and fun just by looking at you. So if you're on YouTube, you get to watch that. If you're on podcast, you'll have to go find it and see how much fun she is. But let's dive right in. I kind of want to just hear your background and hear your story, kind of where you were, and then we'll eventually get to what you've got going on today.
Okay. Oh gosh, I don't even know where to start. But basically, I've been a Christian my whole life. But in 2014, like I say, for my whole life, since I was 9, and I've had a really easy life. Sure, some heartaches, but I always compared and I was like, not compared to that. I don't have any problems. And so in 2014, I went on a walk to Emmaus. I don't know if you've heard of those, but anyway, it's a spiritual retreat. And it was the most profound individual experience I'd had in a group setting. And I learned there that God's love is like all the colors. They said that phrase. And so that's part of like a joy explosion in my life. I'd always been happy, but this brought it to a different level. And so part of it was that I finally stepped into my calling, which I've always done ladies ministry for the last 28 years, but I hadn't taken that step to be the writer and speaker and actually say the word author, speaker. I couldn't do those. I couldn't say those words about myself. I had this little nibble in my ear from the enemy saying, who is going to listen to you, and that kind of thing. And so that retreat, I read a book by Holly Girth called You Were Made for a God-Sized Dream. Mm-hmm. And I thought, oh my goodness, this is permission. I can do this because I already have permission. My father gave me permission to be what I've always done. I've always been a talker. I've always loved to journal. I've always written poems and, just things. And I love to tell stories. And so I was like, well, right. Why wasn't I doing that? It's just kind of weird. And so that's kind of what's brought me to today is I love helping other people find their purpose because they have things they've done their whole life. This isn't a mystery. We always think it's like this big, grand mystery. We don't know what our purpose is, but your purpose is what you are and what you're doing and what you've always done. And, a lot of people get nervous. I'm not going to say I don't get nervous public speaking, but that's like the number one fear. And so if it energizes you, maybe that's what you're supposed to be doing, right? And then if you've always been a word person, then writing and telling stories, go ahead and write the book, go ahead and write the paper, do the things that get it out there because God didn't give me these words for me to keep them. I'm not going to hoard the words. I'm going to share them. So that's kind of where I'm at. And so helping other people find their purpose is just such a joy.
Wow.
Because we aren't in competition. We're not alike. So we can't compete on this stuff. We've got to push and pull and push and pull each other through life and along the same path, but not the same,
Yeah, that's really good. I think a couple of things you bring up, competition and probably judgment, maybe either being judged or judging others. But you're right. We're all just uniquely made and we all have our own story and people are going to relate to you differently than they're going to relate to me or somebody else. Right.
Right.
So what made you decide to write a book and how did that go?
Well, my first book, I wrote it after that experience. When I got back from the retreat, I just kept thinking of all the lessons that I had learned from that experience, and I started writing those. And I ended up with 8 lessons that I'd learned kind of over a lifetime, but had solidified in that retreat. And so I wrote that book because that is how I had discovered my purpose. I had finally discovered it. And so I was like, okay, this is what I did. I was very introspective and I looked at myself as through the lens of God's creation, not as Kris King. I looked deeper. And I thought, well, why do I do the things I do? Well, guess what? I have some of his attributes. He's given each one of us different ones. And so it was so cool to see how he had given me certain attributes and a sphere of influence unlike anybody else's. We all have a unique one that only we are going to see those people, and only we can be that vessel to use in that way. And so when that happened, so I wrote, the first book was called Crowned by His Grace for His Purpose. And it was the lessons, the jewels that he had given me over a lifetime that helped me understand my purpose and my calling. And so that's kind of what started it. And then over time, I've just learned that collaborating with other people is so much fun, that now I've written these 2 books, Sparks of Joy and Sparks of Joy 2, because I've partnered with other people that I knew in my community. I wanted it to be very local, where we would see each other at the grocery store, or someone would read our stories and then talk about it with us at the ball game or whatever. It just became like collaborating. I mean, because these 2 books have people from age 19 to 62, women from all diversity, all culture, all backgrounds, all education. And I was like, yay, it's just so much fun, because I learned just as much from them, especially the younger ones, as they learned from me. And so it was just a way to put my calling into action, but bring others along in a mentorship type of way, and get them published. I waited till I was 57 years old to get my first book published. And these gals are already published now, because they're 19 to, the youngest one was 19. She had actually already published because her parents own a publishing company, but the 35-year-old and the 43-year-old that also published now, I've got 9 out of 16. 9 of them were brand new authors published in a book now. So, yeah.
How did you find them? These were local friends, you said?
They were local friends. Okay, well, God gave me the idea in the shower. That was really hilarious, first of all. For the first book, he just said, I want you to write a book with 6 other gals, so 7 women, local, them all, write the book. So unfortunately, 2 were not able to commit to that at the time. So God brought me 2 more people, and I loved meeting them and working with them. And so that was fabulous. And then for the second book, I just wanted more culture and diversity, and for it to look more like our city. And so I asked friends, I said, my group is small. I don't know how to befriend other cultures and diversity. Sometimes you just don't know where to start that. And so they introduced me to some fabulous women of faith who also love to write, and bada bing, bada boom. We've got a new book with, this book has 14 authors, and we're all different colors, races, all the different things. And so I just loved it so much.
Yes. And now what else? You're speaking, and you'll have to tell us where we can find you online as well.
Yeah, online I have krisking.org. It's KRISKING.org is my little website. I'm not that savvy, so it's a simple one, but it gets you there. And then Facebook, it's Kris Housley King, author and speaker. And I love to connect with people there. Yes, you're going to see a lot of color. You might see some random things, because I'm easily overwhelmed by simple. And I love that, because we ignore a lot of fun things that go on. So I like to find the simple, fun things and say, look, my God did that, So you never know what you're going to see on there. But anyway, and yeah, I'm doing some new things. I've been on the radio twice. I'm fixing to be on the radio again next week, and I had never done that. And because I'm a talker, hey, that's my gig, my jam. I'm kind of loving it right now. But this one in particular, I've told people to tattle and tell about others they know who have lots of joy and have brought joy to them. Yeah. And we're going to have a kind of a joy fest next week on the radio here. I know, I can't wait. Yeah, it's going to be
about what you focus on, and you have to kind of intentionally focus on joy rather than all the pain, hurt, sadness sometimes, right? So have you always been that way, or do you think something sparks in you that said, this is what we're going to do?
Yeah. Well, I can tell you exactly. I was a very melancholy child. I was happy, but I was melancholy because just, family dynamics and stuff. And the message I heard was don't need anything because I had some needy siblings and there wasn't enough time. So I felt unheard. Okay. Well, that made me sort of melancholy and I was afraid of being embarrassed or, doing something I shouldn't have done and, cause anybody any angst or anything.
Mhm.
But after I had kids, I just noticed that I wanted to be fun for them and I wanted to have more joy. And I was going through, I was running two businesses. We had our new grandbabies running back and forth 5 hours away often because I was going to see them a lot. And I had some trouble with employees in my store. Somebody left and, it's hard to fill those spaces that have been filled for 3 years full time. It's hard to fill them. And I was just finding myself with a lot of angst. And I just remember this was in 2015, came back from a trip and I said, I forgot. I can choose joy. I can choose it. Well, so guess what? I'm just going to be happy. And pretty much ever since then, I've been happy. I've learned to be very intentional to look for things that
Yeah.
bring me joy
Yeah.
and do things that make me have joy. And
I love that.
focus on the yucky stuff in the world, just tune that out and go to the source of what does bring me joy. So.
Right. I love that. Did your family notice? I'm curious, but they're like, whoa, you totally changed. Your family or friends?
Well, I kind of think that they considered I was joyful,
Yeah,
but it was more like I was faking it till I made it.
sure.
And
Internally.
I see it, I felt it. And I do have a dear friend that she definitely saw me go from melancholy to more joy. But I'm very intentional. Everything I do, very intentional. And I'm a planner and God made me that way. So I've embraced that while I am a planner, sometimes the plan is to do nothing. And
Yeah.
so I'm building a lot of Sabbath into my days because that brings me a lot of joy, just getting into the word and saying, oh my gosh, what in the world does that mean? I don't know. And I'm teaching a Bible study right now called Culture Shock. And oh
Okay.
my gosh, the last 3 years I thought, oh, my mouth can't drop open anymore from being overwhelmed with crazy. But and he wrote that in 2014. But my goodness, I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on. And so I have to focus on truth and exact and the things that I know and not get caught up in all this craziness. That's kind of how the second book came about. The first book was called Sparks of Joy, Stories of Hope Despite Heartache. And so we all shared heartaches that we'd had and how we came out with hope and faith and joy through that. And the second book was stories of faith despite fear, because we have been fear mongered a lot the last 3 years. And I was like, wait a minute. I know the end of this story and I'm not going to buy what you're selling anymore. I can have joy. And I've learned to listen to the voices that are telling me truth of what's really happening and not what mainstream media or whatever wants us to think is happening. And, you find those voices and you just listen to that.
Yeah, that's life-changing right there. Again, being intentional. I love that.
Yeah.
Well, we will put your website, your show, everything in the show notes. But
Okay.
the last question I had was, okay, for somebody, whatever age you are, I just want to say, hey, mid-50s, I love that you didn't give up and you found it.
Right.
If you're looking for your purpose. What are those first steps? How do you go about that?
I feel like the first thing is do a lot of introspection. I've always been a person that took personality tests and whatever, but go beyond that. Go to the spiritual gifts test and look at what those are in the Bible. Like look them up and say, I've always been a shepherd. I'm a person who gathers. I always have gathered people. I love to have people in my home, be hospitable. And then be an administrator. Oh my gosh, I've ran two businesses. I was a program director for a nonprofit. So what have you done?
Yeah.
And what did you feel in that role? Did you feel joy in that role or did you feel angst? Like, I don't belong in this. Like I was in social work, to be honest, I was a square peg trying to fit in a round hole. I couldn't do it. I could not do it. I love people, but I want personal responsibility to be a goal for everyone. And I do not want to enable people. I want to empower them. And so I was floundering in that role. I just was heartache.
Yeah.
Well, then I got into what I just don't have a bad day anymore. I'm just so having so much fun doing what I've always done, but I was afraid to step out and call myself that. So, I just feel like a lot of introspection, a lot of what if you could do dream big.
Yeah.
Hey, if you could do anything today, what would it be? You don't
Yeah.
have, it doesn't cost anything to dream, so do it and then take one step today to make that happen. And then the next day, take another step. And soon you'll meet people and, put yourself out there. You mentioned Tammy. I met Tammy through a speakers conference. I had gone to a writers conference because you hear this thing a lot. You hear, are you a writer who speaks or a speaker who writes?
Oh,
And this girl, I was wanting to say, I'm a talker who journals. I mean, like, I don't know. But basically, what I am is a storyteller. I love to tell, I love to brag on what God is doing in my life. I love to say, I see that and I know where it came from. And so, it's just not a mystery. I mean, everybody in my family, I kind of can pick apart and go, you are doing what you are made to do, or you are not. I can tell because it's the joy factor. If they have it, they are doing what they're called to do.
Yeah.
And so I just kind of feel like, start there in introspection, prayer, ask him, show me what my purpose is and teach me how my giftings along my whole life from 5 years old have led me to here. And what can I do with that for the kingdom? There you go.
I love that. And probably just a such sense of fulfillment daily, which is, I think, what we're here for, not to just do what seems like the easy way or where we're not excited. I want to wake up every day and be excited about what I do. So
yes,
thank you so much. It has just been an honor to be on with you, and just I can feel your joy and your light, and I love that. It's definitely like intoxicating. I want more. So you guys check her out. Yes, thank you so much for being on. We'll put everything in here and check it out. Thanks for listening, guys. Have a great day.